All right, good morning. It is morning. I decided to come outside. It's a beautiful morning. Hear the birds chirping, and I can see my garden down below growing. And anyway, so it's a good morning. We are on part 4.1. Remember when we left off, there was something that was left in the hollow in Red's Hollow. And so we're not sure what it was, so maybe now we find out. So this is page 143 to page 156. This is part 4.2. So here we go. Just a few minutes later, Maeve opened the door of the little brown house. She smiled at me and at the scraps waving in the early morning breeze. And then came the cry. Wail was more like it, coming from me. Not the meek peep of a wren chick, not the shy squeak of a mouse pup. No, this was a cry of a righteous indignation. This was a baby. The baby had a note attached to her blanket. Haltingly, Maeve tried to read it out loud. Italian? She murmured. Only later, when she consulted one of her patients, she did she understand its meaning. Please give her the care I cannot. I wish for you both a life of love. The baby's hair was black. Maeve's was red. The baby's eyes were brown. Maeve's were blue. The baby was Italian. Maeve was Irish. They were made for each other. Maeve named the baby Amadora, which meant in Italian the gift of love. Had you guessed that it was a baby? I didn't. Many in the neighborhood didn't approve of an unmarried Irish woman raising an abandoned Italian baby. People talked as they will, and as they must. Some people were even angry. They said hurtful things. They told Maeve that Amadora didn't belong. They told Maeve she and the baby should leave. Maeve merely smiled, held Amadora close, and waited and hoped. On dark nights when hope was scarce, she would sing an old Irish tune mixed with newer Italian song that she had learned from a neighbor. The melody was sweet. The words were silly. The effect was always the same, a smile from little Amma. Sure enough, the longer Maeve waited, the kinder people grew. And before long, Amma, as she came to be called, was as much a part of our messy garden as the rest of us. When Amma was old enough to feed Squibbles and his family, she did. When she was strong enough to climb me, she did. And when she was ready to make wishes of her own, she did. Amma grew up steady and honest and kind like her mother, and had babies of her own, and then grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Eventually, Amma and her husband bought the little brown house and the one right next to it, and painted them blue and green. Years later, they purchased a house across the street and began to rent the blue and green houses to other families. The family grew and prospered and argued and failed and laughed and loved. Always and forever, the laughter kept them going. And when Amma's grandson had a little girl, he chose a fine Italian name for her with a fine Irish middle name, Francesca Maeve. You making the connection. As for me, my reputation grew. Hadn't Maeve's wish come true in the heart of a wish tree? Didn't that mean anything was possible? Of course, the Squibbles often reminded me I'd had nothing to do with it. This isn't a fairy tale, Red, he would say. But people are full of longings, and decade after decade, the hopes kept coming. A blessing and a burden it had been, all those wishes, all those years. But everyone needs hope. At long last, I stopped talking. Once the words had spilled out, it was like trying to stop the wind. In the silence that followed, I felt as if the whole world was holding its breath. I'd broken the rule. Stefan and Samar still stared open-mouthed at me. They looked as rooted to the ground as I was. Neither had uttered a sound while I told my story. The front door to Stefan's house opened. "Stefan?" called his father. "What the heck are you doing, young man?" Stefan leapt to his feet. Here I come, Dad. Night, Samar. Night, Stefan, she said. Stefan dashed toward the porch, but stopped halfway. He spun around to look at me. Thanks, he said in a quizzical voice, using the same tone he might have used if Bongo had just made him pancakes. The door slammed behind him. Samar stood holding her blanket to her chest. I know I must be dreaming, she said. She headed to her own porch and eased the door open. I just wish, she added with a smile, that I didn't have to wake up. Almost instantly, I regretted what I had done. I'd broken the rule, the biggie. I'd deliberately spoken to people. And not just a few words, I'd spoken a river of words. I wasn't like that frog in the mailbox. I hadn't broken the rule accidentally. I'd broken the rule because I wanted something. I wanted to matter. I wanted to do something meaningful before I died. I'd done it for myself. After the shocked babies and their equally shocked parents were safely ensconced in their dens, I admitted my feelings to Bongo. I waited for her to yell at me. Bongo is good at yelling. Extremely good. You might even say she has a gift. Why did I do it, Bongo? I murmured. Why? She flew to home plate. She stroked my rough bark with her sleek head. You did it, my wise old tree, because you had a story to tell. It was foolish, I said. I'm not supposed to be foolish. Not so foolish, Bongo said. Just hopeful. And everyone needs to hope, Red. Even wise old trees. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? We'll talk more about it as we go, but that was part 4. He's spoken, and now he maybe is questioning why he did something. Have you ever done something and then afterwards thought, oh my goodness, why did I do that? So think about that. Think of a time that maybe you said or did something and maybe questioned why afterwards. Did you do it for the right reasons? Do you think Red did a good thing? Do you think he should have spoken? So continue listening and reading, and when you're ready to take the Section 4 test quiz, make sure that you kind of read through. If you have to go back and listen, go back and listen. If you have a copy of the book, use it. Go back and find your answers. It's okay. All right. Until next time, toodaloo.